Hello, welcome everyone who is joining us live and those who are watching the recording back. Today's webinar is Press Start, Connecting Student Gaming Interests in STEM, presented by Angelica Romines. Yat Esh Elizabeth Johnson Inishia, Native Initiatives Coordinator SACNAS Dishithlanish, Adana Nishlanigi Ekia Ani Nishla Dotsanajana Bashishtin, Twittini Dashishe, Do Holarashinella, Akut Ao Dinastan Nishla. My name is Elizabeth Johnson. I'm the Native Initiatives Coordinator for SACNAS, and I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation, and I currently reside in the ancestral homelands of the Acoma Otham and Peepash peoples, otherwise known as Phoenix, Arizona. I'll go ahead and pass the mic off to my colleague, Alexandra Holder.
But I'll just go ahead and start my introduction. Hamadak Lakoya Tau Choko Tau Machiapi na Eas Washichuan Alexandra Holder Machiapi. Malakota ne Kirikirish na Hochangadawia Hamacha na Hayuhan Chantewaste na Pechi Uzapi. My Hade Raja Alexandra Holder Hiningairena Shahal Raja Tau Choko Tau Hiningairena. Good afternoon, my name is Alexandra Holder. I'm Oglala Lakota, Winnebago, Wichita, Saginaw, and Northern Cheyenne. I come from the land of the Kanza, the Kickapoo, the Osage, and the Ocheti Shakowee people, known as Lawrence, Kansas. And the programs assistant in mission programs and Native initiatives. And I want to thank all of you guys for being here today, and I would like to hand it off to Angel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. My name is Angel Rebollar, currently in the home of the Ohlone people in Santa Cruz, California. Very nice to see all of you. Thank you all for coming in.
All right, thank you all. Quick land acknowledgements. SACNAS is a fully inclusive organization dedicated to achieving true diversity in STEM. As the nation's largest multicultural, multidisciplinary STEM diversity organization, SACNAS creates space where all members, volunteers, and partners feel they belong and can embrace their intersectional identities. SACNAS is based out of California, which is the original homelands of over 200 tribal nations, bands, and rancherias of Native American indigenous people. We would like to take this time to acknowledge the original caretakers of the lands which we all live and work, and to honor the rich culture of the indigenous people across the country. You'll see in the chat a link to native-land.ca, where you can learn more about the lands you reside in, visit, and are around. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about our speaker. This presentation will offer an alternative perspective on video games, illustrating how they can be integrated into STEM learning. The advantages of gaming extend to fostering positive identity development, social emotional growth, and leadership skills within supportive communities. I personally didn't know that. Now I think I'm gonna try to play my Nintendo Switch a little bit more. Additionally, the gaming industry offers many college and career opportunities, making video games a holistic approach to fostering youth well-being. Today's speaker is Angelica Romines, a second-year master's student in educational leadership, college student development. Romines has over 10 years of experience in education and social service settings, ranging from nonprofits, public and charter schools, and state and tribal governments. Beyond that, she takes pride in her identity as a dedicated video game enthusiast and an active member in the vibrant online gaming community for over 4 years. It's now my honor and privilege to pass the virtual floor to our speaker.
Hello, can you hear me? As a student, I am totally not just completing some little minor details on my presentation, but here I am. Bear with me. I am just now recovering from COVID and stuff. So, I am glad that I do feel in better spirits to present on this topic with you all, because it is a passion of mine, and I encourage you to get out that Switch. It is fun to play video games. Let me get to presenting. There we go. Everybody can see that, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you so much for this opportunity to present on this topic. I'm excited to share my insight into my research and wanted to start the conversation about video games and their benefits with the SACNAS community. Please feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. It helps my neurodivergent brain just to kind of answer them as we go. So you're more than welcome to do that. And if the host could kind of help with that and just, stop me if there's any pressing questions that come up. And let me make sure I put the sound too. Can you all do that to make sure that the sound, oh no, here it is. I figured it out. Okay, there we go. Because there's going to be some clips later on that I want to share. So starting, you introduced me. I want to introduce myself a little bit more on in depth. So that way you can all see why this is a passion of mine. I am Chickasaw, Choctaw, Mississippi Choctaw. I'm Mexican. And I am, as she mentioned, I am in my second year of graduate school studying educational leadership, college student development. I graduated with my bachelor's degree from the University of Central Oklahoma in 2012 in family life education, child development. And in that 10-year span, I have been involved in various positions within the education and social service settings. I began working in after-school summer programming as the student activities, as the after-school and summer program director, and then as a community resource specialist in the nonprofit world. I then moved into a role at a charter school as a student activities coordinator. Later on, I took on a role as a parent educator for a public school and then transitioned into child welfare for the state. After a couple of years in child welfare, I moved on and I started working for my tribal nation, the Chickasaw Nation, at the University of Central Oklahoma, supporting our Chickasaw college students on campus. I just recently ended a year as a graduate research assistant where I was working with Indigenous college students on their wayfinding to STEM. And I ended that position to work for an internship with the OSU esports arena. And that led me into my current role where I am working for Native Gaming. It's an esports org, and I'll talk more about them later. But I'm working with them as a research and development analyst. And so all of that ties into gaming because I've been gaming since the 90s as a little kid. I remember playing Duck Hunt and being forced to play Madden with my brother. We always had the latest console in the house. I was never a big fan of games back then. However, over the past 5 years, I have been immersed in the PC gaming. So that has led me to be involved in this online gaming world and been a part of a lot of vibrant communities online and brought me a lot of different experiences within this gaming world. And so that's where my passion for my research comes into play. So I took all of my experiences and knowledge from my career and my passion of game or my hobby of gaming. And as I was in my starting my master's program, I was starting to think of research topics. And I reflected on my shared interests of gaming with my former students at UCO. And as we, would talk about video games and stuff. And so I started to connect the dots on how we can leverage this gaming interest to support students. I've been presenting I started to think about how this gaming interest could be leveraged. And so I took that and I've been presenting my research with different Native organizations to start this conversation about video games and their benefits. So today I'm going to discuss a little bit about the gaming revolution, on how a little history timeline, the benefits of gaming, and then STEM in gaming, and then a little bit on indigeneity in gaming, because I think all of these are very important for the SACNAS community. So to start, the gaming revolution. So some of the things that came from gaming is that it started in education. So in 1939 was the first computer game, Nimitron. It is based on an ancient mathematical strategy game called Nim. Nim is a game where two players take turns removing sticks from a pile, and the object of the game was to force the other player to remove the final piece. And so it was unveiled at the World's Fair in Queens, New York, and brought to life by Edward Condon. And so then in the 1970s or 1962, Space War came out, and it was developed at MIT, and it was to assess a computer model. And then in the 1970s, the first gaming console came out, the Odyssey, which it also had playing cards and dice to make players feel more comfortable gaming with a console. And that's also the same 70s is whenever video games were starting to be made for the consumer market. And then Pac-Man released in 1980. And that fun fact, they wanted to start marketing towards women because it was, a predominantly male industry. And so they wanted to make vibrant colors, and they actually have names for some of those characters, which is Pinky, Blinky, Inky, and Clyde. So that was really interesting to me to find that out. And then also in 1972, Stanford had its first video game competition with Space War. So there has been competition since the 70s as well with video games. So a lot of times video games have been seen as non-educational, not really beneficial. It's just kind of a hobby. Gamers are seen as, kids just playing, on a couch. The stereotype of people in their basements just playing video games. And that is changing, and more awareness of what these benefits from gaming could look like for students. And the Entertainment Software Association, they have a variety of different resources. And so some of these statistics that we're going to look at is coming from that resource. And so about 75% of people play 4 hours of games a week, and that's across all platforms. As you can see, that mobile is the top platform. There is console, that's a second, and then PC, and then VR headsets are low. I personally do not like VR headsets. They make me very dizzy and sick. And so these are the platforms that people are playing on. And as you can see that mostly there's 62% of adults that play video games. The player base is very diverse. So it's not just children that are playing video games. These are adults, as that would make sense since millennials are playing. We grew up with video games, and so we still play those to this day. And then 76% of kids under 18 play video games. And again, the Entertainment Software Association has lots of educational resources. They are a place that I would check out if you want to learn more about the statistics for video games. These statistics are pulled from 2023, so it's the most recent ones. And also, it's not just a male-dominated industry. There's, 46% identify as female. So women, are playing video games just as much as men are. So to break it down, with races and ethnicities. As you can see, it is predominantly white industry, but we do have some other ethnicities that are playing video games. And as you can see, there's not really a percentage for natives. And so I hope that does change, because my experience, I'm also an auntie to 15 nieces and nephews, and most of them play video games. I have children that play video games. So, we are playing video games, but as you can see, we are left out of the narrative on this statistic. So the average age is 32, which is really interesting. But again, makes sense. So moving forward, for the benefits of video games more in depth, is like the problem solving, critical thinking, those the skills that you can get from video games that people don't really think about. Strategic planning, resource management, teamwork, collaboration. There are video games that require you to talk to your teammates, via headsets and voice chat. I'll show a couple of clips later on that kind of demonstrate whenever there is lack of communication in video games. And whenever I talk about leveraging on those benefits, that's what I want people to understand, is like teaching students to collaborate with your teammates helps you become a better communicator. And so that's something that parents and educators can kind of understand more, that it's not just this hobby. They can learn more skills from this, from doing this gaming. So you have additional like creativity and innovation. There's data analysis and statistics. I personally play Valorant, and you'll see some gameplay later on, but the amount of times that, there's some questions. I'll look at it in just a second. The amount of times that people talk about their KDs, they look at those statistics. And so kind of putting that into their interest of like, oh, well, that, this interest of you wanting to understand your KD can go in further in life in your other, ways of career and college thinking. Okay, never mind. That's y'all. Yes, the Q&A questions. Yes, so technology proficiency. So that's another thing that students can learn. They learn more about technology through video games, programming, coding. So as I mentioned, I'm a parent of gamers, and a lot of skills that they learn is like coding. And so they are interested in it because they see it from their video games. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. We have, the hand-eye coordination, the attention to detail. These are things that they also can learn from the skills that they can learn from gaming. And I talk about physical and mental health as a positive benefit, because I use the meme as like touch grass and drink water. And touch grass is a meme in the gaming community. Whenever you're getting really, toxic in video games and raging, just go touch some grass. So encouraging moderation when you're playing these video games is crucial, because it can take a toll on your mental health, but it also can improve your mental health. A lot of people, claim that video games is, a way for them to have fun. So that's something that people don't really think about whenever they're, playing video games, but it is something that we all are learning. So we have a comment about learning from video games. I remember learning vocabulary playing Warcraft. Sci-fi and fantasy type games usually have different jargon than what you might hear otherwise, and it was fun to learn that. Exactly. My son learned a lot of history from the Sid Meier's Civilization game, which actually led him to learning more about settler colonialism, because he started to understand more about indigenous people and wanting to learn like the truth behind that. And so it really can start to get students interested in research topics. So another thing is identity development. That identity development within games, there's character modification, because we all want to be represented in video games. And so when we want to create our character to look like us, I know whenever I dabbled into GTA, Grand Theft Auto, I wanted a girl to look like me, and so sometimes when video games don't have that, as somebody, a person of color, it really is not fun, as it's predominantly a white male or a white female. It doesn't make the game feel realistic to you, because it's not you. And then as well, you can learn more about yourself and what your identity is within video games. Because like I said, you're portraying yourself in this character, and that's who you want to probably be in real life. But you get to be who you want to be in this video game. So another way that is a positive benefit is the communities that you're a part of. Like I mentioned, I've been a part of, a lot of different communities, and throughout my 5 years of experience in PC gaming. And it's interesting to meet people throughout the world that we would not have a connection to if it wasn't for, the internet. And so this is something that we can leverage, because we can build connections, we can network, mentoring. This is social capital building from video games. So whether it's virtual or in real IRL, in real life, where you're creating these, video game spaces for people to come together and share this interest. Whenever I worked with the Chickasaw Nation, we had, a little student center where students would come, and sometimes students would play video games together. So that's something that you can have for your students, and, creating these environments and to have brave spaces though. And what I mean by that is that as a female gamer, the toxicity of misogyny is in the video game communities. And so kind of utilizing these environments to bring awareness to these topics and have these uncomfortable conversations, that this stuff is, that's not acceptable on how you should talk to, female gamers, or maybe you should think about your wording when you say stuff like this. And, the racism within video games is another concern that happens, from after George Floyd. There was a lot of, in-game gamer tags that were racist, and these are things that we need to help our students understand, that that's something that we don't want to have. And so these are uncomfortable conversations, but we want to have brave spaces where people can be called, we like to say, called in, and get educated on these topics. like I said, the amount of times that I've heard, get back in the kitchen, you shouldn't play video games. It's exhausting, because then this is my like safe place where I'm trying to play a video game. And as I mentioned, sometimes people play, I play video games to have fun, but then the fun is taken away when, you have people just screaming the stuff in your ears. And so on Discord, on Twitch, these are the popular platforms that people are using for video games. Okay, moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about STEM in gaming. So the skills that I mentioned, these are skills that we can transition into STEM, and like problem solving. That's something that you can use in real life situations. Strategic thinking, that's something that you can, implement in your college and career, life. Collaboration, the multiplayer games that you're involved in, understanding that whenever you work in research and engineering teams, that you can use these skills that you've learned and apply them into these other environments. So some of the things that, so whenever we want to merge these interests for parents and educators to understand that gaming and STEM, recognizing that there's these STEM related games that you can utilize to bring more awareness about all of these career opportunities. So like I mentioned, or, we had someone mention about Warcraft, and then I mentioned about Sid Meier's Civilization, my son wanting to learn more about history. My daughter, plays Roblox a lot, and she will become a doctor in one of the games, and, role play. And so these are games that the popular video games that are on the market that students can utilize, and educators and parents can utilize to form these interests for students. Minecraft is a big one. As I have a picture of one of my daughter's builds, and the way that she goes in and creates these masterpieces is phenomenal. Like she, utilizes her STEM skills, though. These are literally skills that she's developing. In one of the eyes, you have to go in, and she has her base in there. And I'm just blown away about the things that my children have created in Minecraft. Minecraft has released a whole version of Minecraft education specifically for STEM. They're working with indigenous communities on bringing more awareness of cultural, homelands, ancestral homelands to life, and educating others about these communities. And that's something that I would love to see more of. And then Animal Crossing, that's something that is big into science. You learn, whenever I played that during 2020, that was a really big popular game. You fish, and you learn all about fish. You have fossils. These again are interests for students, and they can learn more about science and maybe become a scientist later on. So, and then Fortnite. All right, so I'm gonna wait. Nope. Let's talk about the industry first. I forgot. The clips are next. So the industry isn't just for game designers. Some people think oh, well, I don't want to design a video game. That's not my career path. Well, it's not just game design. There's so much involved in the industry. As a social scientist myself, I'm like, I would love to be involved, but what is there? There's like researchers that are in video games. There's psychologists that are behind these video games. There's many opportunities to be involved, if that's something that you're interested in. And so engineers, if you want to be a content creator, that a lot of students want to be a YouTuber or a content creator, go for computer science, go for technology, go for something that's that would make your life easier, because paying someone to build you a computer is going to be expensive. But if you could do it yourself and do all of the mechanics, it's going to be a lot easier on you. Or you can even take what you learn. I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of creators that are like giving what they learn out there as a content creator. So you could even do that if that's if you really want to be a content creator, go for something that's STEM related and provide education on it. That way you have something to fall back on too. So the STEM focused careers, again, like psychologists and researchers, that's still STEM focused, and you're gonna, benefit from college scholarships that are specifically for STEM if that's your, area. And then within even the STEM careers, they're playing video games. The FBI, has whenever I went to the ACES national conference last year, they had a setup where, they were using drones, and you had to put on a VR system, and that's how they're using it to, show how they use the drones, or they use the guns and like shoot down any, drones that they see or whatever. It's just kind of the immersive, environment that they're trying to portray, as well as medical. There's a lot more that's coming out to use video games. Fire scientists, I remember meeting someone and they mentioned that they're implementing where they don't have to go out and fight, fires. They can just kind of have them in these environments, and that way it's safe for everyone. So again, like, these are opportunities that either if you want to create them or you just want to, give the content about them, there's a variety of different opportunities for you. Esports is a big one too. So that, again, I'll talk about native gaming later on, but esports has within, education programs, they have it within collegiate programs, and then you have the industry. So you have shoutcasters, you have production, you have all this different stuff within esports that you could be a part of if, again, like, this is something that you're interested in. You can get
72 and 7.
And you can get scholarships if you're really good, unlike me. So this is where I was getting a little cringy back, where I thought it was going to play. But this is where I was going to show a little bit of my gameplay so people can understand what video games people are playing and how much skill goes into this. Not that I have good skills in my gameplay, but this is where students may not be aware, but they're having to strategically place abilities, or think about the physics of, okay, if I, like Valorant that I'm about to show you, if I shoot this, ability, what area is it going to cover? Or like, okay, the math, if I, do this shot, I have this many, shots left, or, you know, I have to cover this area by myself. There's just so much like problem solving that you have to do within, you know, seconds. And so the first clip I'm going to show, it just kind of covers a game, Valorant, which Riot does a lot within their games of diversity. And I'll explain a little bit more when we talk about indigeneity in gaming, but they do a lot of like, that's where the researchers are looking at how do players play this game. You know, they're looking at their maps and when they're designing and figuring out what's the strategic way that they can make this map and force, you know, people to have this different paths for their abilities. It's really interesting when you nerd out on it. And so I don't look at video games the same way anymore. I start to nerd out and I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool that, you know, I bet they thought of it this way, because then you can have ample opportunity for this. So let me see if I can make this big. Yes, look, wait. I don't. Okay, maybe I can't make it big, but you should all be able to at least see a little bit.
217.
Yeah, I don't know if this one is up.
I apologize, that's not bigger.
Spike planted.
Oh my god, I'm so bad. Let me ult. This is it, y'all.
Is there time? Yeah.
Yeah.
Initiated. Bot coming back.
I might run to you.
Placing swarm grenade out. One enemy remaining.
Nice.
Let's go, GG. Yes, look at that. Oh, wait.
So, I noticed whenever I clip this, I noticed my camera view is over my map, but strategically placing the ability to cover the surface of the map was something that, you know, I had to think on a split second. Again, it's just kind of to show you that these are things that students are thinking of whenever they're playing these video games, when so-called like game sense. And then the next clip is going to show you a couple of different examples of communication and how whenever you don't communicate with your teammate compared to when you do communicate with your teammate. And it's with the popular game Fortnite. So hopefully a lot of you have heard of that game, but it's pretty popular with younger, I mean, actually a variety of audiences. So. Oh gosh, are you kidding me? I'm about to be over this. Are you still building? Listen, kid. Listen.
Coming down.
No! Berta!
It's okay, you've got this. I got thrown into the storm. Okay, you've got this, Bruno. On top of me, right side. Where's Slot?
So as you can see, the first clip of it, like, you know, there was no communication. He didn't tell me that he was working on taking out the build to get the opponent down. And I ended up falling to my, at least being knocked because of that. And then the second one, you know, I was notified that she was knocked. And so I was on my own and had to defend myself. So it's kind of showing there, you know, the communication aspect in video games is needed. And so again, about Valorant, that's a 5-on-5. It's a 5-on-5 game, you have to plant the spike. That requires a lot of, communication, and sometimes that doesn't happen. So the next, we're going to talk about indigeneity in gaming. And so I'm going to share a few video games, indigenous, inspired or indigenous made video games. And I'm going to show, a student that video game is something that they connect with. And that way you can kind of understand a little bit more about how video games are connecting with natives. So in April, I volunteered for IndigiPop X that was held at the First Americans Museum here in Oklahoma. And the event brought in indigenous pop culture together. And while meeting the artist, I came across the student, Georgia Adeline Harjo, and she won an art competition with this art piece, and I thought it was really interesting. So I asked to share in my presentations about this art piece. And she can be found on Facebook. Her Facebook is called Ek Un Leiki, the Mound of Earth. And the art piece is called Staying Connected. And the theme was creating personal connections in a digital world. And so she goes on, if you go on the QR codes, it'll explain a little bit about her and her just a variety of different like pieces that really resonate, and like her moccasins and her I can't remember if it was one of them is her Facebook too, but it's just kind of describing this connection that her playing video games with her brother through this digital world. And so I'll share the piece. We can even use it positively. We can use it to share our thoughts, hopes, dreams, share our art, and see others' creativity. We can use it for many, many things. But the best possible use for it, the ability to connect with our loved ones, creating personal connections in a digital world. This piece shows a boy and a girl floating in space, reaching for one another with many different galaxies and stars all around them. The space is representation of the digital world. The different QR codes throughout this piece, them being the only ones in it together at the moment. As they're trying to reach each other, they both reach towards a QR code, which when scanned will direct you to this Google document. There are 7 different QR codes in this piece that are important to its meaning. This artwork can be interpreted by the eye of the beholder, but when I look at it, I see my brother and I. We have both definitely bond over video games, and they have been a great way to us to pass the time together. I will always enjoy these times. Excuse me. And I feel it further connects me to him, as we're both different in different ways. And I'm glad that no matter what, we can always stay connected by the digital world, within the digital world, and outside of the digital world. The 7 QR codes lead to different pictures important to her. So this is, technology meets art. I thought this was really interesting. And so that's why I wanted to share this piece. And then moving forward, this is some indigenous representation in video games, as it has been historically limited and sometimes problematic, as we've seen with Oregon Trail. World of Warcraft, I believe, is not something that portrays natives in a positive spotlight. I've never played WoW, so I don't know for all of the logistics of WoW, but this is we have seen progression within the video game industry on correcting those, stereotypes. Hill Agency is by an indigenous owned company. It is by Achimosta when on games. Sorry, it's hard for me to sometimes pronounce these names. It's a narrative detective mystery game where you play as a tough as nails PI solving everything from petty crimes to global conspiracies, all while exploring the various different worlds that make up North America of the future. It's an indigenous futurism game with logic puzzles to uncover the truth. And then Seven Generation Games they make educational adventure games, and there's math and there's I want to say science games, and they have it available on Mac, Windows, Chromebook, iPad, iPhone, and Android. And then the stickball game was really interesting where, it was created by the Choctaws, and I couldn't find, oh, now it went away. I couldn't find let me see if I can go back and come back in with it. Oh no, it broke. I couldn't find more about it, but it's on Facebook for the whole video. And so I hope maybe it does come out. I've been wanting to learn more about what they're doing with the game because it looks really interesting. It portrays, the game stickball and has these mythical, abilities involved in it, and it's really neat. Fortnite, came out with a character in their game that is an Apache from the Apache tribe, and music done by the Hallucination in the game. So these popular games are bringing in indigenous representation properly, more so than, the past. And Valorant, like I mentioned, or I showed gameplay of it, they have diversity within the game. So the characters all are from different countries, and Gecko here, he is based out in California, but he's from, Mexico, or he has, his parents are from Mexico. And so it's like, really representing a variety of different cultures within the video game. And I think that's really neat to see, something in a mainstream game. So Native Gaming is an indigenous owned esports org. You can find them, there's their socials. And so they are popular with Halo and Apex. So that's another, way to connect with video games is esports. And that's what this company has done. And streaming, like I kind of showed a little bit of clips of my streaming, but there's indigenous creators out there who are streaming video games. And then Twitch is the streaming platform that a lot of gamers utilize, and it hasn't been represented by the indigenous community, unfortunately. And so a couple of creators took it upon themselves to start the initiative to get Twitch to showcase indigenous creators. And so within that, they put together they did this segment where they highlighted, the streamers, and it's called the Four Directions Stream Team. And so I wanted to play a clip of what their stream team during that segment where they were on the front page, something that they put together. Sorry. I was trying to make it go bigger, but it's not. So as you can see, they implemented their cultural into their segment, and I love that. And it's something that, you know, is bringing more awareness of our community to a wider audience. And so I end with that. Thank you. You can find me on that. The QR code is to my LinkedIn. If you want to connect, I have my email. As I mentioned, I'm working with Native Gaming. We're trying to work with Indigenous owned brands. We're also trying to bring video games, like more awareness of video games and the positive benefits to Indigenous communities. So please reach out if you know, want to start a conversation on how I can kind of help with that, because that's something that I feel like a lot of communities aren't aware of. And like I said, that we need to leverage this. As you can see, a lot of mainstream games are running with this. This is our opportunity to really enhance this. And my website is listed if you want to further connect as well. Okay, any questions?
Hey, we do have one question in
Okay.
our Q&A. It says, I've noticed games, very popular ones, offering diversity in the version of white characters. They may be androgynous or lesbian or non-binary, but they are all white. It's depressing when indie games do not have the funding and support like these huge brands. Naughty Dog seems like a progressive company, but progressive for white characters mostly. What will it take for these companies to want to create new characters that better represent 80% of the global population?
I think some of them are just uneducated. As we can see a lot of that, people don't think that we're still here, you know, and I think that as we bring more education to that, hey, we are still here, we need representation. You know, it's been long overdue. I think hopefully that's something that would cause them to kind of reevaluate their characters. But I mean, that's all I can say maybe to that, is that it's maybe just bringing more awareness that, you know, we need to offer Indigenous representation properly too. So I know a lot of people in the Indigenous game developing company or community that I'm involved in, they get consulted sometimes on characters. And so some tribal nations, you know, get sought out too as well on how, from video game companies, on how they should portray some of these tribal characters. So again, I think it's just, you know, the video game company just becoming more aware that they need to implement that representation. Sorry, I apologize. I guess trying to get through it.
Thank you. If anyone, please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A or in the chat. And I can try to give you all permission to unmute if you prefer.
Yeah, I would love to hear from people. Drop your games that you play, any questions. I will say that, you know, one of the big projects I'm also kind of been involved in is trying to work with Riot Games on bringing more awareness to, you know, the video game industry to Indigenous communities. So they are like really involved in trying to get that exposure. I connected them with ACES and trying to get that community involved with them as well.
All right, if we don't have any questions, thank you so much for that awesome presentation. As someone who loves Animal Crossing and all the cool biology facts given by Blathers, I'm happy to know that my 400 plus hours of gameplay were all STEM related. And in case anyone didn't know, September 12th is video game day. So love to see everyone's avatars. You can tag SACNAS with us. You can also share that with Angelica. If you enjoyed today's webinar, you can find more upcoming and previous webinar recordings on our website at sacnas.org/webinars. This concludes the webinar with Angelica Ramirez. Thank you for joining us. I do have a couple of last minute information to share. We are SACNAS. We support true diversity in STEM, and in that we also have our upcoming conference in Portland, Oregon. There is still time to register. You do want to get that in before we increase our prices. So please try to find the time to go and follow sacnas.org/conference. That way you can see what awesome events that we have. We do host this annually. If we can't see you in Portland, we would love to see you in Phoenix, Arizona. Additionally, next week, we are going to be hosting our 3rd annual Indigenous Community and Wellness in STEM virtual gathering event. This event is focused on climate change and the impacts that it's had across Native country. We have wonderful speakers, a great kickoff speaker that you can all see on our social media. If you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, we are SACNAS, SACNAS. But overall, this concludes. Thank you all so much for joining, and we hope to see you in another webinar soon. Bye.